What's going on, folks? Durrell Lamar here, back in the studio with you guys, and I want to talk to you guys today about why, as an artist, you just might not need the art gallery representation, right? So I want to open up with this isn't an episode about bashing galleries or anything. What I'm noticing is a change in the industry, right? And a lot of trepidation that I'm hearing in the art world about, what's next when various galleries, a lot of big galleries, big time galleries are closing, and the economy and everything going on with money and, job security and economic, this and that whiplash. Like, there is always the question of, for artists, shoot, what am I gonna do? Like, who's gonna help me make money? And so let's go back through a little bit of history. So myself, I've been making art. I'm 35 years old. I've been making art literally since I was in kindergarten. And like I tell people, I learned how to draw when I learned how to write my name. And, it's one of those things where, coming up, my first arts mentor, Peter Oiweri, Nigerian artist here in America, doing fantastic. He was actually the first artist that I understood what getting gallery representation meant, right? And with him, I was 15 years old, or 14, 15 years old, give or take, working out of his garage, much like I'm doing now, matter of fact, and learning from him. I was now always naturally very talented, but he really taught me the formal aspects of art making, right? And really took my work up to the next level. But it was also the work that I was getting into in understanding representation and so on and so forth. So with that, seeing him grinding all the time, and this was back in 2015, or I'm sorry, not 2015, 2005, 05, 06, and this was before the housing and economic crash, the Great Recession, and it was right before then. And money was people were selling artworks and things like that, and then the crash hit, right? And for a lot of different artists, it got tight. For a lot of galleries, especially here in the South, it was tight, and I remember, again, I was still very young. Artists, I remember hearing murmurings of like, what are we gonna do? People are losing houses, right? So the houses that the artwork would go in, if they don't have houses, why would they buy art, right? But then we press on, right? And the economic crash happens. But one thing that I noticed, some of the wealthiest people in America didn't stop buying art, right? Galleries then were they were affected by it, but again, the wealthiest of people didn't stop buying art. And I tell people, that sector of the world is not necessarily impacted by all of the economics of us common folks, us day-to-day people. So then, that was really my first exposure with the gallery world and understanding how artists, are supported. Like Mr. Peter was, putting his kids through school and all kinds of stuff like that off of his artwork, right? And he was the first artist that I saw that was doing well and selling works. His studio was full of pieces on. Okay. So I go to college in 2008, fast forward, 2009, 2010, I get my first internship as a preparator and installer at the Bill Lowe Gallery here. And Bill Lowe became very much so a father figure for me, taught me a lot. Not only taught me about just presentation and how to get shows ready and exhibitions ready and all kinds of stuff like that, but he also taught me how to communicate with clients, how to talk about my work in a very compelling way, but also how to present work, right? Like museum quality work. And I was taking a lot of those nuggets, right? And building my way up. And I was so enamored with it, honestly, I thought that I would one day be able to get my work in the gallery, right? One day. I was always like, one day I'm going to do this. I do really well down at Albany State University. The school is collecting my work at that point in time. I'm selling works. I'm doing things at the Nights of D-Town. My buddies and I, we formed a group, the D-Town Arts Coalition, and we were doing things in the Albany arts community that, frankly, I think, was the whole purpose of going to art school, right? To be involved in the arts community. And I was getting, again, glimpses of the art industry through the Bill Lowe Gallery. Still no representation, but I was paying my bills, right? I was paying my bills, and although I was very connected to, the Atlanta and the art scene, the underground scene and, the fine art scene, I was starting to realize, man, I can do this. I can do this. Like, I very much so can. Okay. Fast forward, I graduate, top honors at Albany State University. Top of my class, highest GPA in the department. My works are selling. I'm a big fish in a little pond, right? Well, I moved back to Atlanta and get smacked in the face with the reality of now you've got to find a way to make art in a larger city, right? You're not in, South Georgia city no more. You're in Atlanta, native here and all of that. We back where the big fish play. I'm still working with Bill, and this time I'm trying to send him work, and he's just not feeling it. Some of the work that I was doing, he was like, that's not it. But you keep going, and that rejection had to start happening, right? The rejection really had to start happening. Okay. Go a little bit further. In spite of all the rejection, Bill was still mentoring me, teaching me about the industry and how to network, how to talk. And I was gaining all of these little skills here and there, right? And still at the time, I thought the end goal was for artists to get representation. I thought that was the end goal, right? That's how you become the Jeff Koons. That's how you get into the world. Okay. Then I go to Savannah College of Art and Design, and was a little too big for my britches at the school, to be totally honest. Not mature, making a ton of work, right? But just not there. But I remember in the studio that I had there, I would have on a little piece of masking tape, get representation at the Bill Lowe Gallery. Now, I remember one of the teachers there at SCAD came in. I'm not going to say his name, but I was quite a bit of a knucklehead at the school. I'm not going to lie. I was not mature enough, but I had the drive and I had the ability to make a lot of work. And at that school, my work was not very well received. If I'm being totally honest, it was not very well received. Some of that probably was personality differences. My youth and their whatever reasons they had, right? And then I myself found myself moving away from the work that I thought was most intuitive to me to doing what I would consider much more academic work. It looked like something that was fit for, the academic institution of art school. And that's fine. There's that body of work, and there's something necessary about learning how to make that work, and learning the ins and outs of academia and that side of the art world. All of just more nuggets. Although I ended up having to drop out, that was a nugget, and at the time that was a dream school for me, and I was so disappointed in that, right? But even still on the side, I still had clients. And so all the time while I was getting down on myself, I was still paying, little bills here and there, and I really wasn't appreciating the fact that although I did not do well in the formal institution of the art world, I was still doing, at the end of the day, what artists should be doing, which is selling works, exhibiting works, selling works, putting yourself out there. And in the streets of the art world, I had a name, right? And so still I operated on the periphery of the gallery scene. Bill was still very much so in my life and mentoring me. And so fast forward a little bit more. Regular life has hit. I'm struggling to keep bills paid. But like I said, my artwork is catching some things here and there, thank God. But in that, right, I had really buckled down and gone through some bad relationships and things like that, and really started having something to talk about. Like I did when I was in college, right? I had such a powerful story coming, out of undergrad, and I spent some years getting my knocks in life, dating people that were terrible for my relationship, losing a lot of money, getting evicted from places, being homeless at a point, right? All the while still making work, still toting around sketchbooks, trying to figure out how to keep my car on the road. Like, it was tough. It was very, very, very tough. And I picked up the odd end job here at the gallery when Bill would support me. Just, hey, look, I need some money. I was in the art world, which is the point, right? I was still an artist doing the thing. Although I wasn't selling multiple tens of thousands of dollars worth of artwork, I was still making work, and it would keep me afloat from here and there. And I think we've got to remember that, like, that in and of itself is a blessing, to be able to even cash in on your responsibilities through the thing that you're passionate about. But in that, I was building a story and dialing in to work, and that landed me on what would become my assemblage pieces, the first early versions of that. And I would text Bill images of my work, and I sent him one of my earliest assemblages. It was one that I called Terminus, and another that I did called Bush Mountain. And he was like, man, I need you to bring that to the gallery. What? Oh, okay. I took the work to the gallery, we sat down and talked, and he was just excited. And I remember Bill telling me one of the fondest memories was, I think you've actually got something really worth looking at, and this is good. And we signed a contract, and I signed to the Bill Lowe Gallery to be represented by him. And that was a dream. I got that dream, right? Well, the downside of it was, I didn't, if I can say anything to be the hardest on myself during that time, I didn't maximize. I got to the dream and then didn't maximize it. I didn't make near as much work. I made good pieces when I did, but I wasn't making them at the rate that I needed to. And to be a professional artist, you need to make a lot of works all the time, and a lot of large works all the time. And it was like right when I got to where I needed to get to, real life seemed to further get in the way. But I wasn't able to produce like I thought I wanted to. And then I also didn't grind it out like I should have. So here I am, got to where I needed to be, and flopped. Bill still had a few pieces at the gallery here and there. I sold some through the gallery, matter of fact. I sold some pretty significant pieces. I did. I made some money there, but I did not maximize the opportunity to be the professional artist that he needed me to be. And that's just real. That's real. So Bill passed away a few years later. I was there at his funeral, and that really hurt my heart. And I look back now and I keep a photo of him in my other studio downstairs. I keep a photo of him all the time to remind myself that I need to work hard and I need to take advantage of the opportunities in art that are now in front of me and be not only grateful for them, but don't let them fall by the wayside, right? And in that, I got back on the grind after he died and was like, I'm never going to let that happen again, to where whether I'm represented or not, I'm going to slow down the pace of making work. Which, fast forward there, I became a hunting guide, right? I'm now, well, I was a teacher. I taught, middle and high school visual arts, and I still grinded it out even then, right? I still made it a point, and it was hard, man. It is very, 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 very hard to make art as an art teacher. It just is, right? I was burned out, I was exhausted. But even in the midst of that, I still would do, even if they weren't huge pieces, I still did smaller pieces, right? And I just kept going. And I used that opportunity to connect myself to, various avenues of folks within the Atlanta arts market, which got me into the African American collector side of the Atlanta arts market. We got a huge black population here. And Atlanta's mostly black. I'm from here, but I mean, our collector market is strong here, right, in the South. And so I had used the avenue of the education system here to continue to advocate for myself and my work. Then let's fast forward. I moved through the public school sector and the private school sector, and in the private school sector, that got me connected to an even larger sector of the mainstream populace of the arts market here in the South. And that then got me a client base. But then becoming a hunting guide took me out of education, but with that followed, the body of folks that followed my work that are into the outdoors and in nature. So I would then use that work, the work that I was doing with my Sporting Life Notebook podcast and all of those avenues and the connections that I made there, I would use my artwork in my writing, right? I would connect my artwork to my guided hunt experiences, where you would get original artworks from, at the end of the hunt and things like that. I did everything that I could to make sure that I would always connect the work that I'm doing in the real life, the things that are real for me in the moment, right? I'm a hunting guide, I'm out in nature, to inspire the work that I was doing. I would always connect my everyday real life to the art making process and never have a reason to say that I couldn't make art. Fast forward that we land on American soil, American soul. And that was, my wife and I's culmination of all of these connections that we had to say, hey, look, people are actually seeking out our work now. Over the many years, although things fell through the wayside, I was taking all of these little nuggets, all of them came together and was finally able to pull together a client and collector base and a community of people that stayed with us through the years, through great public interactions, one-on-ones, all of those things. And that's why I say, as artists, man, look at the things that you have around you, the connections that you make, because you never know how they all come together. And although it took longer and I was represented and I dropped the ball on there, I still learned from the gallery scene. And I also learned how to represent myself through all of those interactions, right? And just infusing my everyday life into my art, and allowing that to tell the story of through our work. And so I say all that to say, man, a lot of galleries are shutting down. It's tight for everybody. And although that may be the case, we are the generation now of content creators that can dictate our own story, like galleries did for us before and still do sometimes. But, we have the power to communicate to our own networks. We have the power to really dive in and tell our story in our own unique and niche ways and showcase the one-on-ones, the studio time, man. Like, you are your own gallery now. And so for those folks that are worried about how, what's going to happen to the art market, what's going on with the gallery scene, how am I going to make it as an independent artist, man, you can do it. And now more than ever, if you use the tools that so many of us have accumulated, being an artist is about networking. It just inherently is. If you're not networking, you're not selling work. What are we doing with those networks, man? Show your own stuff. We've been blessed for 3 years now. My wife and I, through our exhibition, American Soul, we've never needed to find a venue. The venues have found us a year in advance. And it's such a blessing to be able to say that, right? But that is through interacting with people, and giving and sharing kindness, right? Gratitude, and not taking, not taking no for an answer, but also not taking your blessings for granted, man. With that being said, I want to empower you guys, man. Show your work, get it out there, show yourself, man. Those venues, if you build it, they will come. And lastly, man, join us at American Soul 3 out of the Norton and Hodges shop in Charleston, South Carolina on October 8th through the 11th. Come join us. You can register at AmericanSoul.com. The event is also listed on Eventbrite, and I'll put it in the show notes and description. Please like, subscribe, follow our channels, and we will catch y'all on the flip side. Thanks so much.